The mystery of the Pan Am 914 plane that disappeared for decades suddenly reappears. This is the fact. The news that a missing plane had been found for the first time in 37 years spread and shocked the world. It was even mentioned that the passengers on the plane are not old at all. The incident began on June 2, 1955, when a Pan Am 914 aircraft carrying 57 passengers and his 6 crew members flew from New York to Miami, Florida. Just 3 hours after takeoff, the plane was nowhere to be seen, but was eventually declared missing by radar and reappeared on May 21, 1992 after 37 years of disappearance. What do you imagine when a flight that was estimated to take a few hours but never arrived actually landed in a place you never expected before? In comparison, a flight from Indonesia to the Netherlands takes about 14 to 30 minutes. The world's longest flight takes just 19 hours from New York to Sydney. What is this plane that has been around for 37 years? The plane that witnessed the incident was Pan Am 914, owned by Pan Airlines. On June 2, 1955, the aircraft flew from New York to Miami, Florida with 57 passengers and 6 crew members. Shortly after takeoff, 3 hours to be exact, he could not see the plane anywhere until radar reported it missing, even though the weather was very clear at the time. Of course, there are many passengers who come here on purpose to enjoy the beauty of the Florida coast, but this plane shows no signs of an accident, which is puzzling. A search party was dispatched, and after days of searching, it was concluded that the plane had been involved in an accident. Although no plane wreckage or casualties were actually found. In fact, his beachcombing team couldn't find any footprints. Authorities are certain the plane must have crashed into the sea and sank, so a search is ongoing, but no trace of the crash remains. However, this incident also ended with the plane crashing in the middle of the sea. Occult remembrance services and compensation for the victims' families were also provided by the airlines. Meanwhile, the victim's family continues to wonder what happened. Days passed, years turned to sadness and slowly began to be forgotten. Exactly 37 years later, in 1992, Pan Am 914 is said to have suddenly reappeared, but not at Miami Airport, but at Science Bolivar International Airport in Caracas, Venezuela, South America. At that time, Juan de la Corte was in charge of air traffic control. He saw something strange. Airport officials were surprised when the plane suddenly landed. Previously, air traffic control radar could not detect if an aircraft was about to arrive. The sudden appearance of an airplane like magic is unusual for an aviation event. Juan, who was an air traffic controller at the time, continued to ridicule, wondering if he had made a mistake or what was at fault in the incident. However, after checking, he was confident that there was nothing wrong with the system and that everything was going smoothly. "I was just there." During the conversation, the two pilots were surprised and wondered where he was because they were flying from New York to Miami. "It amazes me that the plane is worn out and aging and still uses modern turbines, propellers instead." To one's surprise at this explanation, airport officials ordered the pilot to first remove the passengers from the plane for a temporary layover. But unexpectedly, the plane flew away and disappeared into the clouds. A jet took off from Caracas Airport and followed the plane. And although it took only a few hours before it became clear that the plane had actually landed in Miami, passengers were still seen getting off the plane one by one, and even more chillingly, they is the same as when you see declared missing. Pilots and passengers and crew, absolutely nothing has aged. This story immediately spread to all corners of the world. Recominfo explanation. Based on our searches, Weekly World News is a tabloid that frequently publishes great fictional news. In other words, it is not a reliable source of information. The news appeared in Weekly World News twice, first in his 1993 and then in 1999. A photo of the eyewitness Juan de la Corte had a different face on his two presses, and a curiosity was seen in his release. In addition, there is no valid information from credible news sources regarding the disappearance of Pan Am Flight 914.